Reggae's biggest stars were supposed to be brothers, but behind the music, their rivalries turned deadly. One shocking betrayal split Bob Marley and Peter Tosh forever. A refused handshake ignited a 14-year war between legends, and a secret blacklist nearly destroyed careers. Stick around, because what really happened will change how you see reggae forever. The truth drops now. Bob Marley and Peter Tosh, once inseparable voices of revolution and rhythm, began their journey as brothers of the same fire. But as the Wailers evolved from a street corner harmony into a global phenomenon, the chords of unity slowly unraveled. Peter Tosh was never just a backup voice to Bob Marley's melodies. He was a prophet in his own right, fierce and unrelenting. In those early days, he stood shoulder to shoulder with Marley and Bunny Wailer, each a pillar of the message. But when Island Records began shaping Bob Marley into the global face of reggae, a silent betrayal began to fester. Peter, ever outspoken, accused Chris Blackwell of being the vampire who sucked the blood of the Wailers and left only Bob to shine. He saw the group's rebranding under Bob's name on the Catch a Fire album as a sellout, a dilution of the militant message they were all meant to carry together. It wasn't hatred, it was heartbreak. Tosh didn't hate Bob Marley. He mourned the path his brother had chosen. Diplomacy and mass appeal were Bob's weapons. Revolution and raw truth were Peter's. And so they parted ways, not in fury but in fire. Two righteous flames dancing on separate winds of destiny. Moving on, let's shift our focus to Buju Banton and Junior Reid. In a world where the sound of unity should have prevailed, the silence between Buju Banton and Junior Reid thundered for 14 years. It all began with a whispered insult that cut deeper than a blade. Reid's daughter, young and innocent, was greeted with mockery, not respect. Backstage, a show in Miami, when Junior Reid confronted Buju, the handshake was refused with venom. "Me not shake your hand when you pierce me in the back," he said. The pain remained unspoken but ever present, bleeding through a decade of miscollaborations and unspoken bitterness. But reggae has a way of healing wounds others might leave to fester. In 2022, at Stone Love's Weddy Weddy Wednesdays, the unthinkable happened. Buju Banton paused the music, held out a hand, and summoned Junior Reid to the stage. "We need unity," he said, and Reid responded, "One blood, my brother." Years of silence melted in a single embrace. Reggae doesn't just call for revolution, it demands reconciliation. But not all wounds are ready to close. Moving on, let's shift our focus to Ika and the Marleys. When Ika Mouse, the eccentric genius behind Wadu Dem, he turned his sharp tongue toward the Marley dynasty. He wasn't just speaking out, he was crying out. Behind the rhythms and the flamboyant stage presence was a man who felt pushed into the shadows. From 2014 onward, Ika Mouse accused Ziggy Marley, Stephen Marley, and Damian Marley of using their grip on reggae's global reach to blacklist him. According to him, the doors to major festivals were slammed shut, not because of his antics, but because the Marley name had become the gatekeeper of reggae itself. He claimed they turned the movement into a family enterprise, erasing the voices of pioneers who paved the way. In his words, "They act like reggae started and ended with them." There was no reply from the Marley camp, just silence. But in that silence, Ika Mouse's fury echoed louder. And he wasn't alone. Others, like Burning Spear and Sizzla, had voiced similar frustrations. The question loomed large: who owns reggae? The brand or the builders? Even among kindred spirits, the path often splits. Moving on, let's shift our focus to Luciano and Sizzla. In the heart of Exterminator Records during the mid-1990s, a different kind of rift unfolded, not of egos, but of ideals. Luciano, the messenger, stood for purity, for spiritual guidance, for Rastafarian discipline and sound. Sizzla, younger and volatile, represented fire, youth, and unfiltered truth. But as Sizzla's lyrics began to embrace profanity and abandon the traditional guardrails, Luciano could no longer remain silent. He approached producer Fades Burrell and questioned the direction. "How can we claim righteousness while promoting this?" he asked. Burrell's response: "He's young, he needs guidance," did little to pacify the messenger's concern. The tipping point came when Jesse Jenda, a rising influence at the label, encouraged Sizzla's unorthodox path. The label no longer aligned with Luciano's core. And so he walked away, leaving behind a powerhouse label and a brother in fire. It wasn't just a career move, it was a spiritual statement. Not all rivalries end in peace, and some erupt where no one expects them. Moving on, let's shift our focus to Anthony B. and Terrace Riley. In January 2017, backstage at Rebel Salute, an unexpected spark flared between two respected voices, Anthony B. and Terrace Riley. What began as a scheduling dispute escalated into something darker. Riley, agitated by delays, interrupted another artist set to air his grievances live, and then came the accusations. Riley claimed Anthony B. insulted him in the most personal way. Anthony B. denied it, calling it fabrication, but his response wasn't just words. It was a song. Rastafake, he titled it, a direct shot questioning Riley's authenticity as a Rastafarian. The spiritual insult cut deeper than any lyrical diss. In a tradition rooted in reverence and truth, such a word carried weight. Eventually, years later, Riley shrugged it off, focusing instead on the music. But the echoes of that night still linger in the memory of the culture. Moving on, let's shift our focus to the Marley Brought. No rivalry twisted the reggae community like the tension between the Marley brothers and the industry they seemed to dominate. The children of Bob Marley inherited not just a name, but a legacy they guarded with militant devotion. But as their control over festival lineups and media appearances grew, whispers turned into roars. Was reggae being curated or colonized again? Veterans like Ika Mouse were left at the fringes. Legends like Burning Spear denied the platforms they helped build. All the while, the Marley name shone bright, untouchable. But Ika Mouse's fiery accusations and his refusal to stay silent cracked open a deeper truth. Reggae is a collective soul, not a dynasty. And though no official feud was acknowledged, the atmosphere reeked of silent suppression. Even among giants who built the same temples of sound, the altar sometimes splits. Consider the divide between Bob Marley and Bunny Wailer, another Wailer's brother who eventually chose isolation over compromise. Bunny believed deeply in repatriation and cultural authenticity. As Bob grew more universal, preaching one love to the world, Bunny retreated to Jamaica, suspicious of what he saw as the commodification of their sacred message. Though their falling out was never as venomous as others, the philosophical gap between them grew wider with every new release. Bob Marley was spreading the gospel. Bunny Wailer was guarding the temple. And while Peter Tosh roared against Babylon and Bunny Wailer withdrew into Nyabingi traditions, Bob Marley, the face of global reggae, became both beloved and controversial. Some saw him as a sellout, others as a saint. He walked a fine line between commercial diplomacy and revolutionary fire. To the world, he was a prophet. To his inner circle, perhaps a paradox. When Tosh screamed into microphones about apartheid and police brutality, Marley sang about redemption. Two truths, both righteous, but not always in harmony. Through every beat, every diss track, every public insult and private silence, reggae's rivalries reveal something raw and real about the genre. It is not just music, it is conviction. It is not merely melody, but ideology. When Anthony B. called out Terrace Riley, when Luciano questioned Sizzla, when Junior Reid rejected Buju Banton's handshake, when Ika Mouse took aim at Ziggy Marley, these were not moments of ego. They were spiritual showdowns. Clash is not a fame, but a philosophy. And yet, reggae is no stranger to redemption. Time and again, even the most bitter rivals have embraced in moments of clarity, as Buju and Junior Reid did on that fateful night. The music carries the burden of its message, one love, but also one truth. And the truth, as Peter Tosh warned us, is not always easy to digest. In the undercurrents of these feuds lies a question far greater than any single conflict. Who has the right to define the soul of reggae? Is it the messengers who burn with purity, or the revolutionaries who shout in rage? Is it the legacy holders of the world stage, or the street prophets fighting to be heard? Reggae is at once sacred and political, personal and prophetic, and like any sacred path, it comes with thorns. But in the end, maybe it is not about who won or lost a feud, who was silenced or who shouted loudest. Maybe it is about understanding that even in discord, the music still breathes. Even in conflict, the mission continues. Because reggae is bigger than any one man, any one family, any one label. It is fire, it is blood, it is truth wrapped in bass lines. And as long as the rhythm plays, the story, rivalries, and all must be told. Which of these reggae rivalries shocked you the most? Do you think these feuds strengthened the genre or fractured its unity? Whose side would you take if you had been there in the heat of the moment? Share your thoughts in the comments and keep the discussion alive. For more untold reggae stories, make sure you subscribe.